You're listening to Menopause Natural Solutions, episode 68, Iron and the Menopausal Transition. Welcome to Menopause Natural Solutions, your podcast for all things peri-menopause, menopause and beyond. Stay tuned as your host, naturopath Jennifer Harrington, explains how to use natural therapies to find your ultimate health and happiness during your transition. Hello ladies, I'm back. It's another week and this time we're talking about iron and the menopausal transition. So iron is an essential mineral for health. It is the key building block for hemoglobin, and hemoglobin's job is to transport oxygen to your cells. Oxygenated cells then produce energy, and oxygenation aids in cellular development and repair. With the roller coaster ride that we call the menopausal transition, your iron levels may also join in this fluctuation. In the perimenopausal stage, some women discover they are anemic. If you're having heavy bleeds or longer bleeds, it's certainly worth investigating. Women with lower levels of iron generally feel tired, but it's a kind of exhaustion that doesn't resolve with sleep. You generally wake as exhausted as you were prior to go to bed. That's if you were lucky enough to sleep in the first place, as insomnia is another sign of anemia. While you're in bed, restless legs and painful leg cramps might also plague you as another sign you need more iron. You may look pale, feel short of breath, have a rapid heartbeat, lack concentration, or experience headaches. Depending on how low you are, you may be encouraged to eat more iron-containing foods, such as red meat, seafood, poultry. There is also smaller amounts to be found in certain nuts, beans, and vegetables. In some cases, supplementation is required. At the extreme end, iron transfusions are recommended. Before you have an infusion, it's certainly worth also checking your your copper and ceruloplasmin levels to check you can actually absorb the iron that is about to be injected into you. Copper is a key building block of ceruloplasm. I think of ceruloplasm as a cup that holds the iron. If you don't have enough ceruloplasm, your iron doesn't have anywhere to sit and you won't absorb it well. Copper is not a supplement I would self-prescribe. It is toxic, ladies, in high doses. When I use it with my patients, I'm carefully monitoring them and I'm retesting every 3 months to make sure we aren't creating a new problem with copper toxicity. But for women with low iron and low copper, a little copper can be life-changing. I have seen numerous women with anemia during my time, but I'm yet to meet one who knew about the copper relationship before we started working together. Other cofactors to consider are vitamin B12 and vitamin C, but these seem to be more universally understood. Let's look at the other end of the transition. In postmenopause, women are more likely to have issues with toxic iron overload. When you are no longer menstruating, you don't have the opportunity to release iron with your monthly bleeds anymore. Over time, your iron starts to store. In a blood test, stored iron is called ferritin. Ferritin prefers to be stored in the liver, so it's quite common to see liver enzymes start to rise alongside ferritin, as the excess ferritin is reducing the liver's ability to optimally function. Ferritin also likes your bones. Think about iron in general for a moment. It starts to rust over time outside your body. It does the same thing inside the body. Just as a rusty gate will creak as it opens, so will your joints start to creak with the movement of every day. The gate may start to corrode and change shape. So can your bones develop osteoporosis. A rusty gate may open slowly and get jammed. So may your joints and overall energy levels start to decline. Other indications your ferritin levels are getting high can include abdominal pain, irregular heartbeat, blood sugar issues, depression, concentration, and cognitive issues. You want to be proactive with rising ferritin levels, as it's likely to continue to rise with age. I really want to see it under 100 ng/mL, and ideally under 80 ng/mL. This way you have room to move with the natural age-related elevation. Lab reference ranges alter around the world, and it scares me to see some as high as 300-400. And it is really scary to think that a woman might have a ferritin reading that high, and her doctor might not be alerted to consider iron overload in her symptom picture. So it pays to know what the optimal ranges are, not just the reference ranges. Ladies, if you're having blood tests, I highly recommend that you ask for a copy. It's always great for you to have your own reference so that you can also look and make sure that nothing is on the border. If you've read my book, From Invisible to Invincible, The Natural Menopause Revolution, you'll be familiar with my saying that hormones load the gun, but what pulls the trigger? Yes, all women will go through menopause, but not all women will struggle. If lower hormones were the problem, all women will suffer, but they don't. What is it about you that makes you so vulnerable at this time? It's certainly worth checking your iron and ferritin levels at this stage of life to see if they play a role in the way you are feeling. Let's quickly chat about what you can do if ferritin levels are higher than the ideal. Lifestyle. Get moving. Women who have long-term exercise routines tend to have lower stored levels of iron than non-exercisers. Smokers in general have higher ferritin stores. Be mindful if you're trying to quit, as nicotine patches, sprays and gums may also increase your iron absorption, and secondhand smoke can also cause problems here. Dietary-wise, it can help if you can shake things up in your kitchen. Assess the amount of high iron foods such as red meat you are eating. I still want you eating some red meat, just not as frequently as you currently are. And there are certain combinations of food that either increase or decrease iron absorption. Having an alcoholic beverage with your red meat may increase absorption. But due to the liver health links anyway, it's worth cutting back on alcohol regardless. Drinking teas, and some of the teas in the research were black tea, green tea, peppermint, chamomile, or even coffee at the same time can help to reduce absorption because of the tannins and the polyphenols found in these drinks. Make sure you're eating lots of fibrous foods or adding extra fiber in, as this also impairs the absorption of iron. Make sure you're not using iron cookware like an iron skillet, as iron once heated can transfer into your food, increasing the iron amount contained in your meal. Supplementation. It goes without saying to double check your multivitamin doesn't contain any iron. It's also worth reassessing additional vitamin C at this point, as it also increases absorption. Vitamin C from fruit and vegetable consumption is not a problem, and it's actually encouraged due to its fiber and other antioxidants that help to protect you against free radical damage created by the extra iron. Now, the most clinically effective researched supplement to reduce your ferritin levels is turmeric. Turmeric is an iron chelator, which means it helps to reduce stored iron. Turmeric is a liver-specific herb, which means that not only will it help to reduce your ferritin levels, it will also help optimize your liver function at the same time. Turmeric is probably best known for its anti-inflammatory effects, which is great news for your rusty joints. Turmeric is not just great for elevated ferritin levels, it's also great for other menopausal symptoms such as hot flushes. A recent study, it was actually published earlier this year, was found that postmenopausal women taking turmeric for at least 4 weeks experienced a significant reduction in hot flushes. And that certainly sounds like a win-win to me. Now, then we also need to discuss medical treatment, because sometimes your ferritin is dangerously high that there needs to be something done urgently. And medical treatment is the best way to go in that case. And blood donation is the most common strategy used to remove excessive ferritin. But I also see this as a win-win strategy, as you might be saving somebody else's life as well as improving your own health. Just double check you have adequate hemoglobin and B12 to tolerate the procedure. And just so you know, each blood draw removes roughly 30 to 50 mg/mL of ferritin. Well, I hope you have found that interesting. I look forward to chat to you all next week. Bye for now. Thank you for listening to Menopause Natural Solutions. This podcast contains general information about menopause. It is provided as a guide and it is not intended to replace medical advice. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. If you have enjoyed today's episode, please leave a rating and review.